Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the media panel, the future of Second Life media, that we're holding here at the Second Life 9th birthday community festival exhibition party event. Bit of everything, really. It's 6 in the evening in Second Life. It may be any time for you, anywhere in the world. That is the beauty of these wonderful virtual platforms. We can meet wherever we are on the globe, anytime, any place. I'm Mel Burns, and you may well know me from my Twitter feeds. I sort of post lots of links with news. Some as Mel Burns about the Metaverse, some as Mel Burns writer about Second Life specifically. I also run a company called MetaWorld Broadcasting, and I co-anchor various programs with Metaverse TV, who we work with quite closely. So I'll be sort of covering the broadcast or part of the broadcast angle of this, as well as hosting the event. Media, of course, covers a whole range of things, and you can't really have everybody covering everything. But we've got a wonderful panel today, and I think it's safe to say that we're all kind of multitaskers. In other words, we don't just do one thing, we do quite a few things. But in putting the panel together, I thought we sort of get, you know, a wide cross-section of activity and speciality. I'm going to actually throw it open to the panel members themselves to introduce themselves. I always get myself in a mess trying to introduce other people when they can do it perfectly well for themselves. But I will say we have Honor McMillan, who is a prolific blogger, especially when it comes to arts and travel. Representing the blogger sphere, I think is the right way to say it. We also have Kinte Ferguson here, who is a podcaster. He does a weekly podcast, which is principally audio, but he has done video too. And he'll explain that when we get to it. So that's our radio sort of stuff covered. We also have Pooky Amsterdam, who probably everybody knows already, but I've just put her down as producer. She produces a lot of machinima and video, especially for corporate clients as well. And although she does also host many of her own things in World. Sorry about the sound interference there. Finally, we also have somebody who, if you've been to this birthday event previously, you probably already know her. It's Saffia Widdershins, who's been one of the really driving forces behind the SL9B event itself. Saffia, though, I brought here really in her role as publisher. She has particularly has a magazine called Prim Perfect, which has both a PDF, and which can be printed. It also distributes as a kind of flash-based flipbook file on the web, and it's also distributed as an in-world sort of e-book magazine. So she's really familiar with all the different forms of media we can produce in-world and whatever. So without further ado, I'm try to decide who to start with. I think we will go from right to left, as I'm looking at it, which is left to right, as you're seeing it. So, Honor, welcome to the panel, and maybe you'd like to just tell the audience a little bit about what you do, and mention the name of your blogs and any URL you want to give out and stuff, just briefly before we start.
Certainly, and thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I started in Second Life, like many of us, learning how to build and trying various things, but I became passionate about exploration and finding the wonderful things that far more talented people than I can do. But it was hard to find places, and it was hard to learn about new things. I couldn't find sources. I think historically you'll find most people think blogs about Second Life are all about fashion, and certainly 98% of them are. Yeah,
indeed.
Some of us there are bloggers who talk about serious technical issues. There are bloggers who talk about news. I focus from a more mature aspect. I say that because it's called Honor's Post Menopausal View of Second Life. And I focus on the amazing builds that are out there, destinations, and some truly extraordinary interactive art that is only possible here in the Metaverse.
Great. Well, I agree with that. I'm a big fan of your blog when it comes out. But I also know what you mean. I spend half the day trawling through endless fashionista blogs, just where one in every 200 would be worth retweeting or whatever. Okay, so Kinte, welcome to the panel. Maybe you'd like to tell the audience what you do, basically.
Hello, as it's been said, my name is Kinte Ferguson. I am the host of a show called The Spotlight. You can see it or hear it, on indieradio.org every Thursday at 7 p.m. SLT time. It's right after the Data Stream podcast. And we've been on the air for about 3 years now. And we had the fortune to do a simulcast of our show on the radio as well as in Second Life for a period of time. And I had heard about Second Life a couple of years before we had the chance to do that, but I've always had like a negative view towards it because of what I read in the paper and whatnot and what I've heard. And until we had Pooky Amsterdam on our show, and she was actually someone who gave us a better view of what Second Life was. So I was able to go in there and get a good idea of the art and the culture and the different things that were going on in Second Life. So our show was a part of the Second Life media, I don't want to say circus, but event that was going on. And it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. It's a lot of work. So all you people who are able to do your show in and out of the world, I give you guys a lot of credit because it's very hard. But I'm glad to be here, and thank you for having me.
Yes, I agree. It is hard work, folks. If you want to do it, be dedicated. It is not a game. Well, I mean, I'm sure if anybody convinced you to come in here, Pooky, you'd have been in here like a shot. She wouldn't let go of you. Pooky, congratulations on me. Congratulations.
Yes, this is Final Cast. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for bringing Kinte in here. Maybe you'd just like to very briefly tell the audience what you do, in your own words. Very briefly.
I have been finding and prototyping and doing entertainment in virtual worlds since I produced Romeo and Juliet on Habbo Hotel in September of 2003. I am amazed and enthralled with how we can really live up to the best and better that's in us when we are within an environment where we really have to use our imagination, really have to use our creativity, and somehow miraculously find each other. I have done a number of things in using Second Life as a media platform, of which I'm inordinately proud. I do think that even though we as people sometimes define ourselves by what we consume in life, what cars we drive, what food we eat, what shows we watch, I think in the end it's really going to come down to that which we produce in this lifetime that defines us when that final bell tolls. I'm a huge fan of everybody on this panel. I'm honored to be here. I have been doing a game show, a sci-tech game show where we break news, and it's very exciting. We're going to have a show this Sunday. Please come down and join us. It's going to be right here at SL9B, and it should be really exciting.
Okay.
You will be in the show. I do game shows, and I've also done cinema, and we can move on to Saffia.
Yeah,
So,
I'm going to interrupt you there, Pooky, because I see from our in-world audience that some people are
it's
saying
okay.
they can't hear you.
You pushed the Pooky button. I started speaking, and now
Yeah,
introducing the amazing Saffia Widdershins.
yeah. I'm just thinking. I presume the Habbo Hotel exercise was back when Romeos were innocent, but we're not going to go there at the moment. But yes, so finally, over to Saffia. I gave you a bit of an intro already, but maybe you'd like to describe to the audience the sort of whole wealth of things you do, Saffia.
Okay, well, for starters, I have, as you were saying, Prim Perfect magazine, which is a home and garden magazine in Second Life, although more generally we look at the work of design and designers. And that's also the case of my second major project, which is the Designing Worlds TV series, where we look at the travel around the grid, finding out the work of different designers, different groups, different organizations that are out here and building and creating and doing amazing stuff. As well as that, I'm the producer of the Happy Hunting show, the executive producer of Happy Hunting, which is all about hunts and hunting in Second Life, which is a great activity that a lot of people do, and also the art show Metaverse Arts, which has interviews with artists and visits installations in Second Life. That's the current load. We are about to start a very exciting project, which is going to be part of Happy Hunting, but which is actually going to be a scripted drama that will be regularly broadcast, and we're very excited about that. It's a new departure, and it's actually next door to you on this very sim, Mal. It's called the Black and Mirror, and you can, if you explore the Black and Mirror, which is next to Meta World Broadcasting, you'll see all sorts of amazing things and clues and hints as to what is coming.
Oh, that's great. You're going to have a show a day at this rate. Yeah, I would add, for those of you in the in-world audience here, you may have to adjust your sound volumes on individual speakers. I gather that some people haven't been able to hear some of the panelists, although it's all being recorded for your later consumption if you want. But if you are in-world here, right behind us, not behind the stage, but behind you, there is our bill for Meta World, and around that you'll see the bill that Saffia just mentioned. So it's all very conveniently local. Anyway, let's get down to the business of talking about the future. When people ask me to describe myself outside the context of Second Life, I always try and say, well, I'm sort of a cross between a futurist and a futurologist. The distinction, well, I better not go into that. But we are concerned here about the future. And I said media covered a whole lot of things. And there are actually people out there who advocate that virtual worlds themselves are a form of media. But from my perspective, at least at the moment, when we talk about Second Life media, we're talking about the media that serves the community in Second Life especially. And we're also talking to a certain extent about the media that's produced in Second Life that it is done for outreach purposes. For example, I have a show where, I might be interviewing CEOs of virtual platforms unrelated to Second Life. And the idea is to bring them into an engaging conversation, even though they may have never logged into a virtual world. They are actually seeing a broadcast from it and really sort of seeing something that is almost, as I was saying to Kinte here the other day, a picture radio. In that, it's a chat show that could equally be on the radio, and it's just got added pictures. But obviously, we then move into things that Pooky can talk about, like fully fledged machinima, storytelling, and really major stuff that really qualifies really as television as opposed to this lovely word, picture radio. I think of those two strands, so to speak, which are actually equally important, we're probably better focusing on the serving of the Second Life community, because we're here for the birthday, and community really is what it's all about. So I'd like to sort of, again, I think I would just go round each of the panelists to get the conversation going before we get a bit more free form in our discussion and ad-lib as we go. I'd actually like to start by going back to Saffia. She's probably one of the best people to get this thread going. In recent years, we have seen the introduction of our ability to play what we call media on a Prim in Second Life, which has totally changed the way we can bring audio, visual, and even web pages into Second Life, so that they're consumer items within the environment as much as they may be available on the web or elsewhere as well. And typically this can be a print or a post-print publication. In the case of Prim Perfect, print is the one thing it probably doesn't do unless you do it yourself, through to audio and television and whatever. And really, I think, Saffia, I'm curious to hear your thoughts first on where is all this going. You're doing more and more. Certainly, I'm doing more and more. I think we're all doing more and more here, really. Will the in-world presence of media become stronger, distribution better, or will it be watched more out of the world? What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's a great problem with media in virtual worlds, and that's that it's so fragmented. There are probably no more than 5 major TV organizations. There are hundreds of blogs, and I would say there are dozens of magazines, and yet it's very difficult to get an overall penetration of the market. Prim Perfect has a pretty high subscription rate, which you could say is our circulation rate, and that's great. Obviously, you can't guarantee that everyone who's on your subscriber list is actually opening and reading the magazine cover to cover. But you could, when someone buys The Guardian, you can't guarantee that they're going to have read all the stories in The Guardian either. But there is a problem, and I think we all experience it in trying to actually reach out to the audience. It's that there's a lot going on, but getting the word out can be really tricky. I think we're getting better, and I think that SL9B is proof that we're getting better. I mean, one of the things we really panicked about when we started this was that how were we going to tell people? We knew we had the organisation and skills to build the birthday itself. Well, we hoped we did, and actually we did. We found we had, and we got the volunteers. But how are we going to let people know without the media reach of Second Life, without Linden Lab backing us? I think we did actually a bloody good job. I think, but it's not perfect by any means.
No, I think it's. I think you did a phenomenal job. I mean, I guess it was inevitable that Linden Labs wouldn't put it on the login page, if it wasn't their own. But I wonder. Half the time I never read these login pages anyway. But I know, for example, my in-world Twitter feed. There'll be a blog post saying the latest issue of, I don't know, it'd be a male clothing magazine, a destinations magazine, a home and garden magazine, and there are a lot of different publications, for example, and I will Twitter the post of those all. So if people are following me, hopefully they'll be getting my notice from me saying the latest issue of this is available, and they'll see the variety of stuff there. But not that many people follow. Not my in-world stream anyway. I'm wondering, do you think something we need therefore is some kind of coordinated effort in world where the media companies come together to cross promote, and it's ironic we're in a platform, a kind of platform that represents the future of communication, presence, and everything else. Yet the communication tools we have in the world are actually fairly unrefined. So do you think there's... I'll just switch this over to Pooky because I'm asking the same question. So are there ways that different aspects of media can get together in world to promote themselves in ways that we're not doing at the moment that would bring greater attention to the variety of things around?
I think if you take a look at media, you can look at, for example, something like Facebook or Twitter. You've got hundreds of millions of people on Facebook, yet people's interests are fairly narrow. Yes, the audience is there in bulk, but people's attention is also split kind of at an atomic level depending on what it is that they're interested in. So it's not unusual that people will gravitate to those fields or those areas which are of interest to them. And it's within that context that I think you can reach people and I would think begin to build from your base out. There was just a media expo in Second Life. I think it was over the weekend. And it was the best of Second Life. And I think there were probably a lot of fashion bloggers, and which is a huge audience and market and of import in Second Life. And they were very successful, I think, for what it was that they wanted to do. So, here we have a world, the universe, right, that allows us to look at and be part of that which we want. And you're right, Mal, I follow you because I know that you're going to deliver news about things that I want to see. So I follow you because I know that you're going to give me great links, and everybody should follow at Mal Burns, by the way, on Twitter. Because I know I'm going to see news that, of course, that is important to me. In terms of media, it's sort of interesting, isn't it? It's like we get to feed ourselves that which is of interest, and it's on occasion that we now get taken, let's say, out of that zone or into other areas, or we find them ourselves. People are endless and varied and diverse. If you say media and Second Life, I mean, I think of shows that are produced here and broadcast here, such as we all do, or blogs that are written here and reach a wider audience, as we also do on the panel, because that's what media is. But you think of media as being actually you and somebody you care for having this great conversation that's broadcast out everywhere. Well, that's what we're doing now today. So surprisingly enough, that's become media too. It really is a new and very interesting world that we're a part of.
Yeah, you actually raise a good point there because the web, the internet, but the web particularly, and the communications there have altered the way society sort of consumes news. And you often find, like in the pioneering days of Second Life, everybody knew what was going on because there was a strong community and it was a small community unto itself. Whereas as it's grown bigger, and, for people watching this show, I can assure you, there are lots and lots of people in Second Life, whatever they say. Communities tend to tribalize a bit, don't they? Sort of all the steampunkers sort of start gathering steampunk areas and, I don't know, vampires in vampire areas and fashionistas in shops. But, there is only a certain amount of time when any given community of a certain size can survive as a compact community before it starts fragmenting and people start specializing. So I think this is something we're probably seeing on the greater web these days. People, obviously people are communicating with people, but they are more empowered, shall we say, to choose what they consume. So, my way of thinking is, I want to bring the knowledge of all those choices to people, rather in many ways, rather than the individual items from those choices. But let me move on to, I'll zoom straight across to Honor here, because Honor, you, for example, write a blog. Is there any extent to which you get feedback from people reading your blog, and you feel there's a community of people around your blog, and I'm coming back to the same thing, really. Do you feel there's a select audience there with your blog, or do you think it's very wide-reaching, or has the potential to be wide-reaching? And what other blogs would you associate with, maybe?
Blogging has all of the various traps in it that other media approaches have. We wind up being tribal. We wind up being narrow. People find you or they don't find you. My own personal blog, I try to expose a variety of the vertical communities, the local communities, so that people are exposed to them. But what that will mean is that if I talk about a steampunk destination one day, I will suddenly get a whole bunch of steampunk readers. But it doesn't mean they necessarily hang around the next week to find out about the latest art at Leia. Right. I have a lovely, devoted core group of people who are interested in learning about all the different communities that they can and going and exploring them. If I really want to attract a wider audience, and I've seen this over the past couple of years, I can be extremely controversial and say something that whips up a frenzy in something. But that's not particularly what I want to do. But that's one way to do it. Yeah. I have occasionally tripped that way. The other way to do it is to argue with one of the major bloggers, which is really not something I want to do either. It's not a way. To me, it's a waste of time. But if I wind up annoying somebody who has 10,000 readers and they link to me, then I'll get attention because of that, but not somebody who's going to hang around again. So what you wind up doing in blogging, as in other things, is you write about what you're interested in, and you hope that people who are interested in the same things will find you. The issue is being found. That particular blogger with the 10,000 readers is very good at it. He will go and put himself on Reddit, and he will use all of those tools himself rather than waiting for other people to go, oh, I like that, and put it onto Reddit. You have to decide for yourself whether you're more interested in a wide base of readers or writing about what you really want to write about and working to be found that way. If I had to live off my earnings on a blog, which are zero, right, I would worry about the numbers.
I can guess which blog you mentioned. I mean, there are certain blogs that seem to have been around forever, and the blogs end up being questions. The titles of the blogs are, do you think this, that, and the other? And you get a short item, and you have to wait hours for the blog to load its advertising. So it's almost some of these are geared these days to just maximizing readership and hits, I should say, rather than true readership. Whereas your blog particularly is extensive, very colourful, lots of photos, and as you say, it covers the wide range of things. And I tend to agree with that. I've always just done what I enjoy doing and just hope other people latch onto it. Let me come to Kinte. We haven't heard from you yet. So now you're coming from another angle entirely, because you're well, not entirely, but your podcast is. I know you have worked with simulcasts and video too, but your podcast is strictly a sort of weekly audio thing, isn't it? It runs on a schedule. Presumably you get feedback from readers, and I gather you get, you have people listening to the podcast from out on the greater web as well, rather than just as an in-world thing. So, first of all, I'd actually ask, do you get a lot of feedback to the show? And, does the show itself lead to sort of spreading the message, increased listenership and participation?
Well, we do a live show, so we have a live audience. So I'm able to talk with the people that are in the chat room, as well as people will hit me up on Skype who's not in the chat room. And, we get emails and stuff like that. And our show focuses mainly on machinima, but we cover most, pop culture things. One thing that we've dedicated to this season is that we want to move the genre of machinima forward. And one way I don't do machinima necessarily for a financial gain, but I know there's a lot of people that do, or who think it's not possible. So one of the things that we talked about this year is monetizing machinima, as well as one thing that the main thing I think is so important for us to get more successful is to also have build our audience. And right now, a lot of our audience is other people who do the same thing, and we need more just watchers than people who are basically trying to achieve the same goals as ourselves. So one way that you can build your audience is doing events like this, as well as just finding out who is out there who shares the same kind of view, not the views, but the same kind of passions for the same things that we cover, and then try to get the word out amongst them. And it takes time to do that, and it takes really seeing who does it right, and also seeing people who maybe don't do it right. I think looking at both sides can be very, very beneficial to you.
You've actually provided me with a great segue into one of the things I was going to come to anyway. I'm actually quite a big fan of machinima. We have a Sunday show that I do with my partner Tara Yates, which is totally web-based. We have people on webcams talking, but we also fill in the intervals and extensively, for about 3 hours, just showing what or usually me, thinks is the best machine of the week. I actually, there's no difference in the name machinima, of course, machine cinema, but I do make a distinction between what I call inhabited machinima, where it's created with actors, there are real world people behind the avatars that are being filmed to make the story or whatever it is, and strict machinima, which of course can be done with the movie storms and stuff offline and composed, rather like a composer composes music rather than put the actors in inhabited machinima perform it. We don't see that distinction talked about much, but one of the encouraging things is that YouTube, the Google company, of course, recently started investing a lot of money in their machinima channel, because they found that of all their themed channels on YouTube, machinima is a really big thing. And I'm wondering, as part of the future of media coming out of Second Life, can we capitalize on this sort of huge interest in machinima? I have you. Your show features talk about machinima a lot. Pooky, of course, makes machinima a lot, and I do a show that shows a lot of machinima. So do you think, I'll open this to the floor, maybe starting with Pooky, I don't know, but do you think machinima is one of the big keys to project, the biggest form of media we have available to really project the message of what is possible in these platforms?
If you want to ask me, I can say when we just did the first public service announcement, completely done on a game engine, it's been incredibly effective with kindergarten to 8th graders. That would be, I guess, to 13, 14-year-olds. And when they were showing the film in an auditorium where there's no fidgeting, by the way, once the film starts, someone yelled out, "Hey, they're using my game." Now, obviously, they most likely didn't mean Second Life. They probably meant The Sims, but the fact is that this is recognizable and therefore it becomes acceptable. Machinima did just get an infusion of $35 million funding round led by Google, which also included Redpoint Ventures and MK. $35 million is a lot of change. And they're investing in machinima.com, not, I think, with the hopes of it just being game engine film, but with it reaching this particular audience, which is for machinima.com, heavily male, and between, I guess, 14 and 28 years old. They are looking for original programming. That does not necessarily include the first question, for example, but that does include real-life zombie-themed web series called Bite Me. It's an enormous destination, but I do feel, I will agree that Machinima has, as a game engine genre, has great hopes. There was just the announcement that the Valve engine would be creating would be used to create an $18.5 million called Deep. This is going to be a major motion picture done entirely on a game engine, and to me that is really huge. As far as machinima.com goes, though, they do not accept Machinima made from Second Life. Now, really? That may mean that it's because their demographic is not fond of the things that come out of Second Life. Their demographic is very voracious and active commentators on videos, and more times than not, God is killing a puppy while you're feeding them. So that's
I agree. I mean, that took me by surprise. But I mean, that is in some ways typical. You mentioned that the California thing was recognizable as Second Life, and somebody think, "Oh, that's my game," which is great. And I actually can't really tell the difference between Second Life and InWorlds and a lot of Open Sim because they're very similar. But there is that group of grids does have that kind of very distinct look, which has its advantages. As it's not hyper realistic, but it's not cartoony either. It's somewhere in between. But your thoughts, Kinte, on that? I mean, you're closest to this. Do you feel there's a prejudice against Second Life in Machinima?
Well, I think that Machinima.com's target audience is really 6 through 6.5.
Okay. But, that figures.
But yes, there's a huge prejudice against Second Life, especially that audience, because they don't know the difference between, let's say, a Halo Machinima versus a Second Life, or Movie Storm or iClone. They look at it graphically and they say, "Oh, well, it can't compare to it," but it's just like it's a different thing. You're basically using the canned animations that come within that game, whereas there's a lot of good stuff that's created in there, but it's just a different monster, And I noticed that that audience is totally enamored with the graphics, and Second Life, iClone, Movie Storm, all of those can't compete with it graphically. So the way that we can do that is telling better stories, and that's the only thing that we can do. But telling a great story is not gonna reach that audience, because they want the 5-minute dick and fart jokes, and I mean, I'm sure it's people done it in Second Life as well, but that's not something that's going to be easily sustained, because eventually those kids do grow up.
Yeah. So if we're going to do anything about it, we can forget machinima.com and
yeah, I mean
it's very interesting. Yeah, I mean there's a lot of interest in this, but it's
I get machinima.com's RSS feed every day, and it's packed with stuff, and I just scan down it, and I'm not really interested until I notice something that's not all Second Life, but half the time it's just I've got to agree, just scanning and not even following through the links. I do get the feeling that it's just fun and games and gabbing about the stuff half the time. What do our other guests think about this? I'll start with you, Arno. I mean, you're not really actively involved in machinima in any way, are you? But as an observer?
As an observer, what I would love to see, and I keep going and looking for it and hoping it will appear, would be somewhere such as YouTube, where there were a variety of Second Life channels. So that, for example, if I wanted to do a piece on a steampunk build, and very often in my blog posts I will link to a machinima that is relevant. What I would love to be able to do is find the Second Life Steampunk channel in YouTube, and all the steampunk communities having done machinima on an ongoing basis, and see what the latest one is. The same with Second Life art channel, or a Second Life role-playing channel, or a Second Life media channel.
Yeah.
So I could find Pooky and Mal and Kinte or whoever and find them there. There should be a way for somebody to do a search in YouTube that doesn't involve just typing Second Life and finding this whole mishmash of a variety of things, but actually do it by topic or by subject or by channel.
It's very interesting because over on our Meta World Broadcasting exhibit over the road, I mean, one of the things I do more than, say, Metaverse TV, who do broadcasting, is I do aggregation. People know this from the Twitter feeds. And I do it with video too. And, I've got channels up there. There's one which is chat, one that is lifestyle, one that is music. And what I do is I hunt through Vimeo and YouTube and any publicly available servers, and I aggregate them by theme into playlists. So eventually I hope people in world will, they'll put a screen in their virtual home that reflects their own interests. So I've hunted down the material for them, so they get education all in one place, music all in one place, etc. But Saffia, your thoughts on all this? Because of course you're very actively involved in the show type of machinima anyway.
I think Kinte raised a very interesting point, which I think is fundamental to all media, and that's the need for content, for stories. Stories are good and strong, even whether they're fictional or non-fictional, and it's going to be the quality of content that is going to be so important for Second Life, and for other virtual worlds as well, and where it's going to score over things like Facebook. Although with talk of this new cloud, what is it called, Cloud Party application?
Oh yes, that's that's very new.
Yeah. My feeling is that that we will score by having the content that people stick with, and it doesn't have to be a fictional narrative, although it'll be good if we can have fictional narratives. At the moment, a lot of machinima and a lot of Second Life videos are very much of the hey, look at this. This is happening, hey, look at this. They're not telling stories, and I think that telling stories is going to become increasingly important and is what will make it sticky. They can be sequential stories, they can be fictional stories, they can be factual stories, but thinking about building a narrative into the media that we make is going to become extremely important if we're going to survive.
You're reminded of way back in ancient history. I actually worked with comic books to a great extent, writing and publishing, and I suddenly realised there is actually a parallel here, because some comic books would attract people because of the wow factor of the graphics. You know, somebody would do some great new graphics, and I was a sucker for that as much as anybody. But the ones that really last are those compelling stories, the narratives that keep you engrossed in the story. I mean, the comic strip is actually, the graphic novel is a story. It's like a novel. It's a storytelling medium. You know, cinema on paper, I called it in those days. And you know, often it's a very simple style that actually is needed to tell the story. So it's not just the wow graphics. You know, good story, as you say, can be engaging.
When you think of people who are influential in comics, if you're thinking in terms of Brits who've been influential in comics, I think you probably would say Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman.
Yeah.
Well, they're writers.
They're writers, yeah.
And you're not thinking primarily of the graphics. You're thinking of the people who tell the story. It all comes back to E.M. Forster, aspects of the novel. You know, what does the novel do? It tells a story. We should always remember that telling the story is so important, and we've got to keep doing that.
Now, there's another aspect of this, because I actually agree that storytelling, be it fiction, non-fiction, you know, the narrative more than anything else is the thing that draws you in and allows us to, you know, put the pictures with it. And as I say, my favorite, you know, I define the machinima I like as inhabited machinima. In other words, you know, the actors are inhabited. Real actors are performing the parts through their avatar. They're not simply constructs of convenience. You know, it's part of the old tradition of acting, be it on screen or on stage. Or, you know, you can film drama in Second Life, you can film ballet, you can film music. But one thing I do find that is popular, for example, which is outside that spectrum to a certain extent, is the use of machinima for music videos. I see a lot of machinima that it's just accompanied by very good music. Sometimes it's Creative Commons, sometimes it's original performers, you know, music from in-world. Sometimes it's some soundtrack that they probably shouldn't be using. But you know, I get this sort of machinima version of MTV, and you know, I choose clips and I just love playing them because I'm getting into the groove of the combination of music and sound. I'm going to go back to Anna here because obviously she has a very keen interest, you know, I know from our blog, in arts. And of course, you know, we get spectacular arts in Second Life where we have installation possibilities and things that you just couldn't do in the real world, the not possible in real life thing. But we also have incredible music community, for example, in Second Life, and we have, you know, some machinima that really just blends those two. And, you know, I think that has a lot of power too. Would you agree, Anna?
Oh, amazing power. I mean, one of the first things people realize when they come into Second Life is that they can go sit in a virtual venue with people from around the world and listen to a live performer from Nashville. An amazing, amazing experience. But the fact that there are machinists who are true artists and can marry the two, that should be a huge thing, not only for the Second Life community to learn about what's going on in the world and to enjoy it, but to share it with other people in their physical world, to say, see what's possible. And as an advertising and public relations venue for Second Life, it's enormous. And we should be encouraging that and highlighting it and exposing it.
Yeah, I just love the idea of doing a link saying, hey, come and meet me at this gig. Oh yeah, you've got to download this program, but you know, fair enough. It's a great gig, she's great, he's great, whatever. Kinte, how does music fit into your machinima coverage and stuff? Do you find that that side of it has much relevance in your podcast?
Yes, definitely. We've had the pleasure of having several people who perform in Second Life on the show. And one thing that I love about it is that's the thing that drew me into it at first is the idea of that you can go to a venue and see someone actually, performing their hearts out. Probably it could be in their mother's basement, it could be, wherever. But it feels like you're at an event, and people act as if they're at the event in person, and it's a really good feeling. And that's one thing that Second Life does extremely well, is put on these events. And I think if more people who didn't know about Second Life really understood that, it would change a lot of the perceptions that are out there. Unfortunately, they do have some people who probably shouldn't be singing live, but that's to each his own, right? But,
yeah, sure.
Because I've heard people say, "Oh yeah, I saw an SL singing event. That guy wasn't any good." I said, "Well, you can go to a real life event and see someone who sucks, So it depends. So, but I think music always is something that can unite a community, because you'll get even the fragmented Second Life community. Sometimes you'll be there and you'll see people just as regular avatars, as well as you'll see steampunk people there, as well as vampires and I forgot what the little people are called. You see them running around. Tinies, there you go.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a uniter.
It is, yeah. So we're all in our little tribes, and then we suddenly emerge and join forces because we like a performer. And I mean, it's often said that Second Life, it's like a rebirth of the old troubadour age, because it's actually so easy to just pick up an instrument and stream into Second Life, even though there are, for machinima and indeed for some live gigs, you get the virtual live band to somehow mix sounds from 4 people scattered around the world and still manage to stay in sync live. But it's true. I mean, it's a good birthing ground for musicians too, because I know a couple of astonishing musicians in Second Life who, in their own words, suffer from extreme stage fright, and they, it doesn't happen where they're in a Second Life, but put them on an organic stage and they quiver and fall apart.
One more point too is someone said earlier about having a place besides YouTube for machinima. There's 4 that I know of specifically. You have yourmachinima.com, you have a View TV, you have the Movies Underground, and I have a site called Indie Showcase where we show machinima live. So those are 4 great places to see machinima, and a lot of them are Second Life as well as other platforms as well.
I was just looking at the numbers because I was curious. At the Second Life also, of course, has a YouTube channel, and they have 7,000 and something like 25 subscribers. Machinima.com has 4,556,675 subscribers. Now,
to be precise.
Yeah, that's
yes.
All right. Now, I also know one of the highest viewed machinimas out of World of Warcraft. They have numbers like you've got 17 million on a video, 13 million, 15 million, where you look at the Second Life videos that have been the most watched, very few actually go over 1 million views. We are in a graphic novel that we're living and experiencing. And it's like if you wanted to film your niece's birthday party, that's really important to you. Is filming your niece's birthday party going to be interesting to anybody who's not in your immediate family? Possibly not, unless you bit somebody else's finger. But why should frag fests and first-person shooter events have a level of subscription like this. And so I think of machinima, and I think of machinima as animation. And I know that we and the Pooky Media team, Russell Boyd, the director, Rob Soothsayer, and Draxter, just Bruce, we've done a lot of work with as well. It's got to stand on its own. If you watch South Park, you don't say, wow, what platform was that filmed on?
Exactly.
And I have to say, that's not super great. That certainly ain't CGI. It's good storytelling. It's good plot. It's good sound. And I cannot say enough how good sound is really important, because people will watch a bad film with great sound, but they will never see, they just won't really watch a great film with bad sound. So people are highly sensitive in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I actually download to play, offline on the big screen, my favorite machinima, and sometimes it gets as far as my, I go horizontal, chill out in front of the screen, and then machinima comes on and look great in the web window, but suddenly with the, with the surround sound on and everything else, it falls apart, and you realise just how atrocious the production is, in a real-time environment. But something else has just occurred to me before. I think we're going to start wrapping soon, but I mentioned earlier, and I don't want to get into the, this isn't the place to talk about identity in Second Life or anything like that, but we have a Sunday show that I do with Tara Yates, is in the audience here, where we actually have avatars, most of them are avatars anyway, come on real live cameras. And on occasions, we've even had Second Life musicians come on and play, instead of as an avatar playing live, they come onto the webcam and they play live for us. And there seems to be something rather engaging about that connection. People come on to look at a show like that, they see an avatar they know and love in real life, and it enhances that connection, shall we say. That somebody will be watching, and I don't know, a musician or an avatar will come on, they'll talk about something, and then suddenly they're being looked up in world because people suddenly know them as a real face. Do you think there is anything we can do in terms of outreach in Second Life and our media to make it more real to people who maybe don't conceive it as real at the moment? I mean, a major criticism of avatars is the fact they are avatars, and for somebody not experienced, they don't perceive the reality of those avatars. Is there anything we could do like that? Anybody?
I think this is, again, I'm coming back. I think you've got to make them so interested in what is happening that they ignore the platform altogether. I was talking to someone at work today about my iPhone and reading books on my iPhone, and he said he'd downloaded a book and he was finding it very difficult to read, and he'd given up because it was such a small surface and you have to turn the pages so quickly. And I said, well, actually, read a few pages. Once you're engaged, you won't notice how quickly you're turning the pages. When you're reading a paperback book, you don't think, I'm now turning a page. Oh, God, I've got to turn another. Oh, this is so dull, I'm turning another page. You are so engaged in the story that you don't notice you're turning the pages. And it's the same with, reading a book on a small iPhone. You're not reading that much text at a time, but after a while, your thumb is just skimming to the next page and the next without you stopping to think about it. And I think that's should perhaps be a model for what we're doing in Second Life. We need to make stories that are so strong, so powerful, that people aren't thinking what the platform is, they're just thinking about the content of what we're doing, so it becomes almost irrelevant.
I'd also like to, sorry Saffia, but I'd like to point out that podcasts and blogs don't rely on forms. They don't rely on avatars versus flesh and blood. They rely on the voice, and So if the voice is compelling, it's really irrelevant if Kinte is talking to an avatar, or to the fat guy in the basement, or to the tall, gorgeous blonde who can sing her lungs out. If what I write or what I show in terms of photographs is compelling, it's irrelevant whether my voice is coming from an avatar name or my physical world name. The content, again, is what Saffia is saying. It's the content that matters. And if we start getting professional, all of the people who take advantage and exploit the various media opportunities out there, if we start to get professional in terms of worrying about quality and worrying about content, then I think we'll do a much better job, and we can stop worrying about identity.
You may have a very good point there, because there's great fun and games in Second Life. Second Life's not a game, but you can build games in here. There's lots of fun activities, as well as some of the more serious activities that we undertake. And I think, oddly enough, we are often faced with that uncertainty when we meet and engage with another avatar as to, to do something work-wise, whether they're going to be playing the game and taking it or not taking it seriously, or whether they are a professional and now approaching it seriously. But I think that's, it's like the real world, really. I mean, if you meet somebody in the street and you start concocting with them something to do, you don't really know how serious they are about it until you've gone a bit of a way in, so to speak.
Until it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you cannot get the shoulder to move exactly the way you need, and you have to deconstruct the entire hairdo again. Yes, you don't know.
Well, it's odd you should say that, Pooky, because here in London, where I am, it is 3 o'clock in the morning. And it is for Saffia too, which just proves the point, actually. We're scattered. I have this lovely introduction I use sometimes saying, howdy everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good tomorrow, depending on wherever and whenever you are. It kind of fits. It's the only thing that covers all eventualities. Anyway, I'd like to start rounding us up now. As far as I know, we have no tight schedule to get off the stage, but these things are usually just an hour and a half or something. So I really want to go, I guess I better just go round the panel again, looking at the future. And, ending these things, there are sort of two questions I can ask. None of us can predict the future, but we can do our next best guess. And, I can ask you do you think the future of media in Second Life is? A very broad brief, that one. But I can also ask you, what would you like to see as the future of media in Second Life? But obviously your focus will be on your own sort of brand of media or the areas you're involved in. But I'm going to put you on the spot, because I'd actually like each of you to try and answer both of those questions, even though I imagine they're going to be separate answers. So I will start with Anna, I think. I'd like to know... You hate me now, yeah. I've put you on the spot, haven't I? Basically, it's all about your thoughts. So where you think it's going, what you think changes, what changes you think will happen, and how things will improve. And the answer to what you would like to see may be a different answer. I don't know. I'll just open it up to you.
No, I'm an optimist. I'm an incurable optimist. So I assume that what I want is what will happen. I'll try and do this briefly, but obviously one of the big issues for Second Life, for the people who live in Second Life, is knowing what's going on, is finding out. And there are great media companies and great media outlets, and the four of you are sterling examples of it. But what I would love to see is a virtual, forward-thinking equivalent of the old days, back in my youth, when you sat down in front of a television set and there were only 4 channels, or there were 12 channels, and people all could see the same shows, and then they all knew it was there. So what I want to find is that the media becomes accessible very easily, that there's a place people can go and find it, and that people can start talking about it. So water cooler chit chat within Second Life becomes around what they've seen, heard, read through the media, and our stories get known and our stories grow and more people get involved, and that's what I would like to see. On strictly the blogosphere point of view, the number of people who blog about their communities and who reach out to other communities has to grow, and I think it is growing. And when people realize that they can do it and practice doing it, and that it isn't all about, I mean, I love you fashionistas, I really do. I'm a horrible example of what can be done with fashion in Second Life. I gave up a long time ago. I don't care. Arrest me, whatever you want. But the volume of blogs about serious, lighthearted topics, but community is what's important, and communities can be represented in the blogosphere, and I want to see more of them, and I expect to see more of them.
Great. Kinte, the two questions, if you can remember them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what I think the future is, I think what's going to happen is you're going to start seeing more savvy people get involved in through because the thing that I think is important is critique of what's going on, but intelligent criticism from the machinima point of view, as well as just what's going on in this virtual environment. I think that we need to hear some real truths when it comes to the work that we put out and produce. So if we can get more people to give more intelligent reviews of, whether it's, fashion, whether it's movies, whether it's, whatever is going on in world, and it's a good thing. And another thing is also, as a viewer, someone who's not producing anything, I always like to say comments are like currency. So when you hear or see something that you really like, let the person know. Because a lot of times those people are not making any kind of money or anything. So your feedback goes a long way, and that's something that I've always tried to do with all the things that we do, is put a spotlight on the things that people are doing. So that's what I hope is going to happen, and I hope it's the same thing. I'm not as big of an optimist as Honor is, but you know what? I'm a hope that's what's going to happen. So
great. It's actually very true. I mean, one of the great things about the internet age with television and things like that is, we have live broadcasts, but we have a chat room in text right at the side of it, and you are getting the live critique while you're on air, which is really quite freaky sometimes. Anyway, same two questions to Pooky.
All right. I predict that there will be game shows played online. Yes, viewer live online, login entertainment. People will be able to log in from anywhere in the world and play right along and win prizes from recognized sponsors. And this will be a way that any product can also have video content. It can have excitement. It can have things going on immediately, like get this question right and redeem a code for a brand new 6-pack of soda. We do those live game shows. Maybe we'll pick up a sponsor. I also think we're going to see more game engine films because it is just much less expensive. I think that the way the economy is going, this is going to be a must-do. I also think that we have a 360-degree studio set in here, which in some ways is really superior to what CGI is, where you just see the pieces of things. So I think because of that, Second Life will be used even more for things like storyboarding, potentially more expensive projects. I also predict that we're going to see a mesh face mask, a mask that you can put over your avatar's face that can actually be cued and moved with greater emotion. And I think, oh yeah, baby, once that happens, that's like a dream. Then a lot of things are also going to be possible. Filmmaking is a craft, and it is an art and a skill, and it really is valuable. but you have to honor it and you have to respect it as such. My final prediction is chocolate-covered bacon.
Oh, lordy. You know, I've got to, I honestly can't wait for the mesh mask. You know, it'll be a whole different side to the webcam. You know, we won't need webcam shows. Our avatar faces will be controlled.
Right. Well, that's it. You know, I did an on-the-air show, the live show. If we had avatars, I think a lot more people would have been compelled to come. It's kind of an interesting idea. Sorry, I'm done. Thank you.
You're done. Okay. You're not done, but you're going to go perfect.
Now,
okay.
no.
Okay, 2 questions. The key 2 questions to Saffia, if you can handle this stuff tonight.
My prediction. Sorry, I missed that last thing.
Sorry. Oh, I'm very sorry. I just said your answers to those 2 questions again, basically. What you would like to see in the future, and what you predict might be happening in the future regarding media and Second Life and projecting out.
What I'd like to see in the future is the ability to get out onto mobile apps much more easily. I think it's essential for virtual worlds to survive that they can connect with mobile apps like tablets and even phones perhaps, so that I'm not saying that you should be able to open inverted commas play close inverted commas Second Life on an iPhone, but it might be handy to have the facility to dial someone on an iPhone and connect with them as an app in Second Life and see them sitting in their home in Second Life. The only way that you would actually be with them in Second Life is if they kind of then pointed their phone around, pretty much like you would phone someone now and see them on the phone. Good
point.
I've actually done a very interesting experiment because you can. I download Designing Worlds show to my iPod, and I've been to dinner with people, and they've sort of said, "What are you doing?" And I talk about Designing Worlds, and they're like, "Yeah." I show them on the iPod, and they listen to the show, and they see the show, and they actually get intrigued, and they watch it quite happily. I once had a couple sit there and watch an hour-long show. We were after dinner, and we'd been talking about the show over dinner, and they wanted to get a taste of what it was like. So I said, I just got out my iPod and showed them a show, and they were sitting there while we kind of drank coffee, wondering if they would ever come back to us. Each one with, one wearing one earbud, one wearing the other, and watching the whole of the Designing Worlds show. I think that mobile technology. My prediction is that over the not just over the next year, but say over the next 5 years, mobile technology will, I hope, for virtual worlds, develop to a point at which it almost becomes seamless whether you are in avatar or real form, which could be quite scary, but I think will come. And many people would choose to be in avatar form because, of course, you can always be young and beautiful.
Yeah, that is a great segue, because I was going to try and answer the same questions myself, and you've almost done it for me. Because one of the great things about broadcasting from virtual worlds is that you are broadcasting, and you can show people things on the web. They would never think of coming into Second Life, and if they hear an engaging show, it might even be this show. They forget about the avatars, as we discussed earlier. They are focused on the discussion, and they realize it's a serious discussion, and they suddenly think, oh God, there's more to this than just a cartoon sitting there, and it is inhabited. quite literally. And therefore, even if only a few of them ever investigate further, you're projecting the potential. And September last year, I acquired the last generation of iPads. And my entire workflow, apart from Second Life and video editing and stuff like that, is now on the iPad. I don't need, because a lot of it is consuming things, tagging it. I really just don't need the workstations anymore. And we had a meetup, which regretfully you can get to, of course, on Saturday, Saffia, because of the birthday bill. But I actually saw one of the musicians in Second Life brought along an Android phone with quite a big screen, not a pad, with a program, I think it's called Lumia, on it. And he was literally showing me Second Life on his mobile phone. This was a fully fledged Second Life client with the world, not just text. There's no such thing on the iPad yet, but on the iPad, I was demonstrating other virtual worlds I use on the iPad that are equally compelling. We can talk in voice and text and walk around and meet, as meeting places. So you are very right. When I look at the way things are going, I think, we have to learn to project the things we're doing at the moment, really, whether it be the blogs, the videos, the podcasts, or whatever. We have to bear in mind this incredible move to mobile technology, especially pad computing. Everybody's getting in on that act. And, I so agree with what you said, Saffia. I will download Designing Worlds or something else onto my iPad. And there's a lovely little button there that you can fire it into the Apple TV, so it goes onto the big screen immediately. Faults and all. But, if you've got a visitor and you're saying, this is what I do, and then, they say, well, what's that? And they don't want to know. Well, they start listening and you can't get them off the screen for an hour, So it does work, this sort of outreach. There's certainly a lot going on there. If people are interested and they're gripped by the narrative and what we're talking about, the engagement, they will stay with it. So I think we've had a lot of talk about engagement, and as Kinte rightly said, we mustn't be afraid of self-criticism or listening to the critiques as well. We learn from that. There's nothing worse than an audience who sits there saying, yeah, oh, I agree, oh no, yes, of course we agree, no, and blah. You don't get feedback, you just get consent or murmurs. And I really think we do need that feedback, and we need feedback from the people in the audience here today. If you found any of this interesting, I'm sure any one of us would love to hear from you, your thoughts or suggestions about what we do or critiques about what we do. So this interaction really is all part of it. But I would dearly love to see Linden Labs develop a mobile client of their own. There is an iPad one that does text, for example, but so I can attend meetings, but I can't see what's going on. And I think that is a very big future. But the same with our blogs, our podcasts, our machinima, whatever. We need to project it out a lot more, and sort of. I think that is happening. I foresee, a big change with mobile computing. So. Any closing thoughts? I'm going to just ad-lib this. I'm going to give it to all of you. Any closing thoughts before we sign off and let our audience sulk away?
I would recommend that your audience, or people that they know, if they're interested, get involved in the media opportunities, all of them. Contribute to what the really good people on my right are already doing, learn from them, expand the media-verse within Second Life and out of it. The more people who are doing it, the more people who become professional and good and brilliant at it, the richer the media about Second Life will become.
I think so too. Any other thoughts? Anybody? Closing thoughts? Anything, Kinte?
Yes, the thought I wanted to end off with is, when you see people as ourselves that are out there grinding and putting out this content, support us. So read the blog, support it, leave comments, share it, like it, do all that stuff, because it really helps. It really helps, and it gives, some people who make really good content the willpower or the drive to continue to make good content. So just support your fellow community members, and that's the thing I would like to leave with everybody.
Wonderful. Closing thoughts, Saffia. Anything else?
I think I've been looking around this place, Second Life 9B, that the community has made and pulled together. And I feel like Howard Carter, questioned by Lord Carnarvon. What do you see? I see wonderful things. And I think what we want to do is share those wonderful things.
I can't say better than that, really. Pooky, closing thoughts.
I think that you're able to do in Second Life things that you can't do on the other side of this screen, whether it's create a magazine or a television program or have pictures that are so rich, and a blog about a life that you never even imagined and yet walk through every day, or to be able to have a fabulous podcast show or a recorded show that you can do what you want here. And if you have a burning desire that's going to be backed up with the energy and dedication, then do it. And you will find people who will also live up to their best strengths. People here really work to their strengths, and you will find these people to go on this incredible journey with you, because in the end of it, it is your life that you're living, and what you can reach out and do and become here and find out is so tremendous and inspiring that you should never be afraid to try. And also never be afraid to be honest with yourself, because if you are doing media, it is to an audience that you are responsible, and it is to an audience with whom you have a contract. So never be afraid to ask yourself, are they going to enjoy that?
Absolutely. Well, Second Life is as real as it gets, really. It's as real as any other place you go to, and that's with all the implications that brings with it. It's somewhere to communicate, push forward our lives in all respects, I think. But I think it's time we took a wrap. We'll probably be back next year talking about what didn't happen and what did happen, or something like that. Who knows? But we've still got quite a few days to go yet here at the Second Life 9th Birthday Community exhibit. And for any of you watching out there who haven't yet made it here, you've got to get here. There are just so many astonishing things to be seen, that really exemplify the unique creativity and wonderment of this particular platform. So with that, I'd like to thank my guests, Saffia Widdershins, publisher, known mostly for designing worlds and Prim Perfect, Pooky Amsterdam, who's known for just about everything really, but Dating Casino, First Question, wonderful machinima, and everything.
Thank you.
Kinte Ferguson, for Spotlight Podcast, machinima, and everything. And Honor McMillan, whose blog, I believe, is it's at blogspot.com, isn't it?
No, it's now WordPress. So it's
it would be
.wordpress.com.
Okay. Honor McMillan, wordpress.com, which is one of the most engaging blogs out there, especially if you're interested in arts and travel. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
It was a pleasure, Mel.